This week on the Laura Flanders Show, cities bring a lot together, crisis and opportunity. What power do they have to transform our world? That's our question on the show this week. You're watching the Laura Flanders Show, the place where the people who say it can't be done take a back seat to the people who are doing it. Welcome. Please take your seats. We're about to begin. Welcome, welcome. Let me see if I can get this right. Pacos de Zwiger. Close? How do I do it better? Pacos de Zwiger. 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 Pacos de Zwiger. To you too. Pleasure to be here. My name is Laura Flanders. I am very happy to have been invited by the Transnational Institute. It's amazing fellows program, its new politics program, and its transformative cities program, all of whose fellows are meeting in Amsterdam right now. So if you can feel the temperature heating up, that's because they're all here, bringing the heat of their intellect and their engaged intellect to this city. And we have invited you all to this public session to let you in on some of the super secret confidential strategies that are emerging from TNI. But more broadly, to include this city, which, as I understand it, is going through a moment of exciting transition and transformation and possibility, to talk about cities as a place of transformation. We are all assembled here in a city that is all about assembling. Cities accumulate. They accumulate capital. They accumulate people. They accumulate aspirations, and they accumulate power. And I think what we're going to be talking about today is whose power, whose aspirations? Cities are critical. From 1848 to 1968, cities have been sites of conflict that changed the world. The same is true right now. In June 2018, the Transnational Institute, or TNI, a social movement think tank, convened people from all over the world to consider the possibilities and practices emerging in today's cities.
The most shocking thing I see in São Paulo, in many cities around the world, but mostly in Brazil, is how democracy has been captured by corporations.
In the city of Jackson, I think there's a continual threat of capital.
Transnational corporations.
Private, smart cities.
Unemployment, underemployment, the economic disparity.
Globalization and financialization.
A transnational capital. There are no two ways around that.
TNI's gathering took place in Amsterdam, just as a new administration was taking power here that had pledged to join the network calling itself the Fearless Cities Network. It includes, among others, Barcelona. At a big public event that was free and packed out downtown, the Laura Flanders Show co-hosted with TNI a public conversation that was kicked off by Columbia University professor Saskia Sassens.
Cities are complex but incomplete systems. That is why they have lasted across centuries, across millennia. Think of powerful, formalized, closed actors. Kings, corporations, very powerful actors. They're all gone. Cities, the city where they operated, are still there. Of course, new actors emerge, new, et cetera, et cetera. But there is something interesting that we might ask, why have cities have such long lives? And the city has also been a space where those without power got to make a history, got to make an economy, a little economy, got to make cultures. So there is something about the city that will not let go.
The question of who owns the city is one of my favorite topics, actually. The city, in principle, should not be owned. And let's leave aside private city, because there are now private cities and there are going to be more of them. But let's take your average city, which is not a privately owned city, which has a municipal government, etc. De facto, there is far more privatizing than meets the eye. A lot of what's, say, in a city like London or in a city like New York is seen as public space. It's private space. Big firms are leasing it, so to say, renting it out to the government. At some point, they can cut it. Potsdamer Platz, the rebuilding of Potsdamer Platz, which is a very significant space in the history of Berlin. All the streets are privately owned. So something is happening, and sooner or later that will kick in. Right now, it's an invisible privatizing. What I'm excited about is that the cityness, the deep sort of urban moment, if you want, never gives up. Look at this, what's happening in Amsterdam, right? People are mobilizing. That's what a city enables. The Transformative Cities project of the Transnational Institute is an amazing, and what it brings together in terms of people from all over the world. This is also the right moment to launch this initiative, because this type of initiative does not always find a home. But this is the right moment, and people in cities all over the world. I mean, not all cities, and not all people, but so this is quite a remarkable project, and it's like it was born. The institute was born to engage history today.
So, Rutger, you are the party leader of the biggest faction now in the Amsterdam government. We tried to figure out a translation for your title. We came up with alderman. Talk about a current resonance. How do you see your position? How did you get to here? How did we in Amsterdam get to this place? Briefly, and how do you see the challenges emerging? What do you grasp as your primary challenge in this sort of first breath of your new role?
Well, I'm not quite sure if I know how we got here. I've been in office for a week now. I'm still confused and feeling like Alice falling down a rabbit hole. I think that in general, we had our elections in March, and I think there was a general feeling among people from Amsterdam that something had to change, and maybe we were just the vehicle of this change with some other parties. And if you look at, and these are the main challenges I see for the city of Amsterdam, is that we definitely have to green the city, and we have to combat climate change, because climate change is one of the main challenges that we face, not only as a city but also as a country. And the way you combat climate change, for example, I just read that Hamburg is working on a just energy transition. I think that's one of the main issues for Amsterdam. But also, if you look at increasing social injustice, increasing polarization between people, that's one of the main challenges from my point of view. And I think that there has been a democratic deficit, that there are a lot of people who organize, for example, energy, for example, the helping of refugees, and a lot of people are acting in bottom-up initiatives, and we need to find a way to support those initiatives. In a sense, we need to redefine the way the government is talking to its citizens and the relationship between government and citizens. And for me, as being in office, we said that we definitely wanted to be part of the Fearless City Network. And we had contacts with Barcelona, we had contacts with Naples, and I feel that a lot of inspiring things are happening all over the world. And what I definitely know is that we cannot do this alone in Amsterdam. We have to have new cooperations with cities.
I think good intentions are not enough. So, true, yeah, of course you already know, but I think it's, when you want to become a fearless city, you have to, I think, it's not just a happily ever after. And of course you know, but I think it's important for both movements and cities or important people running the city to keep in mind that it costs, that you have to make a decision, that you have to weigh certain things. That, for example, if you are against climate change, you might have to say, hey, the Van Gogh Museum is sponsored by the fossil fuel industry, that's not okay. Or if that you are against climate change, you look at the harbor and you see, hey, that's the second biggest coal harbor there is in Europe, that's not okay. And I think that to become a fearless city, you have to be fearless. And we heard that fear is one of the things that holds us back. But I think it's fear and also those power relations that are entrenched, and it might make it very, very difficult for someone like you, and even more for me, because I, of course, have the problem of the police, which is a bit scarier than the VVD. Well, we can debate about that. But so there are the people we're up against. So that's one, or the institutions we're up against. That's one thing I think we have to be aware of. And that might get in the way of our good intentions. But I also think that our good intention might get hampered in some way by our own limitations. So when I said that Code Rood is prefiguratively organizing, that means that it's very hard work most of the time to confront myself with my own inherent racism, ableism, heteronormativity, and that to organize in a way that I want to see the world also costs me something. So I have to give up things as well. I have to be aware of things as well. And so if I say, yeah, if you say, oh, I want to be a fearless person, I want to become a fearless city, whatever you say, it costs things. And I think we have to be aware of that sacrifice.
Coming from a new country that was created by colonization and inspired by vibrant revolt by a woman who burned the Dutch barracks at the time, I would say that our experience of cities is very different, but we are getting a new experience, what is called smart cities. What the speaker said before is very important. If we don't initiate actions, collaborative actions, articulated with political action to challenge the dominant politics, we will be moving towards what is called the private cities. All these big money, big property buyers, they are now into creating new cities, private cities which are not municipalities, private cities which are not local government based, but new entities. This is the new global apartheid, but small initiatives can challenge it, but if articulated with challenging political power, even at national level.
For us, I think the first thing is building off what you just said. Having the capacity to share our vision and to actually dream, but to put those dreams and that capacity into concrete organizing campaigns and forms that people can actually hold on to and implement in their lives. And for that, in our context, we've been very explicit about challenging power, but also very explicit about presenting a vision of a new society and a future that we all have the ability to construct with our own hands in a very practical way. That's a concrete thing I think that cities can present, and I think the more to the how that I think we all have to get a little bit better at, which I think is part of the reason why we're here, is coming up with the tools that we can share to other people in other municipalities, in other regions and zones, so that they can also take up this struggle and then work and apply it in their local context to build power.
Where does the Transformative Cities project go next, and what is it learning? I asked Sol Trumbo Vila, TNI's coordinator.
So now I'm just going to briefly pass to the video that try to explain in 2 minutes what the Transformative Cities initiative is. Transnational Institute is a non-profit research institute based in Amsterdam with a global network of different organizations we work with. For 40 years, we have been working with social movements, critical academics, and policymakers. And by being at this nexus, we have been providing solutions, alternatives, ideas that are then put into movements and tackle some of the global problems we face, either in the environment, in society, and economic justice. The feeling of belonging in a city is really strong. For instance, I live 8 years in the Netherlands already. Maybe I will live even more time. I don't think I will never consider myself Dutch, but after 6 months in Amsterdam, I'm Amsterdamer. Similar feelings happen in Madrid, Barcelona, New York City, and others. So this capacity of fighting for something local is really very important. In Spain, for instance, we could see that in the privatization of healthcare. So striving for access to healthcare, universal healthcare, is one thing, and some people will campaign, but stopping the privatization of a hospital in your neighborhood really pushes people. So this proximity, it really helps to political organizing, and cities provide this space with strategic advantages for social transformation. So we really have to seize this opportunity and transform as many elements of our political and economic system as we can.
TNI's Cities Project convened activists from all over the world in Amsterdam this summer, and I had a chance to talk to some of the participants about what they saw as their city's major challenges and its strengths.
The greatest shocks are the disproportionate effects of the ongoing, I don't want to say crisis, it's a chronic recession that we're living in, because I do think that the cities are the condensed sites where the intensified struggles between global capital corporations and workers play out. We see massive displacements of population. We see growing amount of skyscrapers and expensive developments, while we see growing prices and drop in real wages. We see displacement of people who have been living in the cities for generations. We see hipsterization, this kind of appropriation of the aesthetic of the poor, and it's a very ugly landscape where there is less and less space for the everyday human being to reproduce unless they're spending money.
In order to have rights, you need to have a proven address. People, because of real estate speculation, people could no longer pay rents. And according to our 1988 constitution, property should accomplish its social function. It means property should be divided. As I said before, 1% of people in São Paulo have 25% of land.
There's a new concept in Mauritius. The new concept is private smart cities. And these are gated cities, which is outside municipal, outside citizen control, and which is owned by capitalists, by capitalists and finance sector, and mafia also. So we don't have the same meaning.
We tend to think of globalization and financialization as some kind of abstract, global process, but it always hits the territories. I mean, both the financialization processes and the global trends, they need territories, they need people to buy the products or to work or to create ideas, whatever. So I think that working on the cities gives us a very physical, embodied experience of what happens when a financial, for example, money floods a city, like this happened in Spain, and then you have this construction boom. What are the impacts of this in people's life? You see it in the cities. And also in the face of the crisis of the nation states, and I think that the lack of trust in classical parties and institutional politics, the proposal that we made for the cities, the municipalism, this new wave of municipalism in Spain, propose some other kind of politics, propose an idea of a government that is closer to people. And well, we also thought that if we have to address the question of what is the government doing, we should start by cities, because it's the place where democratic structures could be more easily implemented.
With capital being more mobile and workers being locked into different territorialities, controlled by visa regimes, increasingly impoverished, people get pitched against each other. There is rising xenophobia, right-wing forces. And what an average human being does not always understand is that it's not their neighbor, it's not somebody of other color or religion who is the source of their dire state. It is the global capital.
I believe we are living in a moment with a unique historical opportunity. We are in this process where certain technologies have been developed that really allow us to break power structures that seem impossible to break. The internet especially is at least as important as the printing machine in the Middle Ages that broke the cultural hegemony of the Catholic Church in Europe, which was a power structure impossible to think beyond them.
I think that we have to ignite the imagination of the possibilities that technology allows, while getting away from the Silicon Valley narrative that is usually centered around white men, and that ends with like Elon Musk lifting himself into the heavens, into this like dildo-shaped thing to spread global capitalism to the galaxy. There's another way to use technology that is not techno-deterministic. But technology is here, and we can use it to advance our ideals. And when we think about appropriate technology, you know, we usually think about like shovels and things which are very low tech. But I think that we can also think about appropriate technology in this digital realm. And we have to, because like I say, it's coming for us.
I think our greatest asset is solidarity, because I think every occupation, we are all like a big family. We are able to be empathic, I'm not sure, to each other's feeling. We are able to help each other. Some people that are there were people that lived alone before, or people that consider our occupations as a family. So we're there to make sure everyone is heard and we live as a great community.
What we need is that people in Mauritius, as citizens, reappropriate the political space and democracy. That is why I'm part of Resistance and Alternative Party, because we want the citizens to be a part of the country. Not only what is voted in the parliament and who decide on what decide things that we totally disagree. We want them to be part of the country.
I'm Ana Mendez, and I'm here because I'm part of the municipalist movement in Madrid. I am currently coordinator of Madrid 129. It's one of the groups or the collectives that are part of Ahora Madrid, which is the party in the government of the city.
I think that there's two potentials. First is the practical potential. It lowers the transactional cost of getting a lot of voices heard, but it also takes back technology. I don't think that you can take technology for granted. So you may say, oh, I don't care about technology, but technology cares about you. So you got the big five: Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and which one am I forgetting? Facebook, yeah. And with a market capitalization of over 3 trillion, they're determining how our social interactions are mediated. So you may not care about technology, but society is increasingly becoming more technological. And I think that technology has to be political. So these initiatives in Madrid and Barcelona, a lot of the cultures that came together for the municipalist movement, you had the feminists, you have like the old left, but you also had the open source software movement. And it's been an influence, and it's important because it allows us to enter this political struggle of, is technology going to determine our futures, or are aspirations for the future going to determine the shape of technology?
For more information about TNI and for all of our coverage of transformative cities and more, go to lauraflanders.org. And if you want to become part of our supporting circle, the people that support this programming, make a contribution or sign up to be a monthly sustainer for as little as $2 a month. You can do that right there at lauraflanders.org/donate. And thank you.